I am so thankful to the Lord to have an opportunity to be back in my home state, be here at the mighty Shiloh Baptist Church here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and to look out into the audience, see my brothers and my sisters from across the state of North Carolina, and also those who are joining us virtually from other parts of the state. Just let me say, I want to thank the Reverend Allen, the pastor of Shiloh. I want to thank Marcus Bass and all the coordinating committee that put this convening together. A convening of organizations, a convening of organizers, a convening of brothers and sisters who care about our present and our future. I want to thank Brother Dillahunt for kind words of introduction. And what he was referring to was an article that I had written back in the early 1980s. Because as I recall, when Ronald Reagan was elected, everyone knew that we were going to experience some hard times, being a far-right, right-of-center Republican. But we made it through the Reagan years. We made it through the Bush years. We made it through a lot of different presidents. The question before us today, in 2022, not only what our challenges are, but what our opportunities and what our responsibilities are. So in just a few minutes, because we're on time, I see that Congressman Butterfield is waiting. I'm just going to say to him virtually, I'm always glad to be back. Congressman Butterfield and I grew up together as being freedom fighters. And we now have more members of the Congressional Black Caucus than ever before. So salute to also Congresswoman Adams and others. We have a rich legacy here in North Carolina, a rich history. And I'm saying in Greensboro, where the student city movement started, students from A&T and other places, there's a rich legacy here. But I think we should not reflect on the past as if we are living in the past. We're living today. And I tell brothers and sisters all the time, to February every year, the best way to celebrate Black history is to make some more history. Is to learn from the past. Now, most immediately in North Carolina, the powers that be in the state legislature, the powers that be in those who have redrawn the congressional district lines, the powers that be who have instituted certain laws to try to keep us from voting, repressing the vote. But I want to say to all of the listeners this morning, the worst form of voter suppression is not what the state legislature does, or the governor does, or what some judge does. The worst form of voter suppression is when we suppress our own vote ourselves. When we give up, when we sometimes become frustrated or disillusioned or alienated with the process. And then, of course, back in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, we didn't have what we have now called social media. And I noticed that there are some people who pretend to be Black who are not Black, get on social media and spread more disinformation, more reasons trying to concoct in our mindset that our votes don't count, or that we should stop voting to prove to the system that we want a different system. All kinds of theories aimed at Black people, not just in North Carolina, but across these United States. But I'm so thankful to the conveners of this convening, Marcus, because when I woke up this morning, I woke up with freedom on my mind. When I went to sleep last night, I went to sleep with freedom on my mind. I arrived at Greensboro Airport. Interesting thing happened on the plane. I was sitting, because of COVID, I was sitting in first class. I was on the brother in first class. And I had my suit tie on. People said, "You must be a preacher." I'm a preacher. So, "Where are you going?" So I'm going home. And then they said, I'm not used to people giving me inquiries during COVID. But Marcus, all the way from DC to here, they want to know, why are you back in North Carolina? What's going on? What's happening? So I basically said, I'm here to have a meeting with my sisters and my brothers. And then they said, well, what are y'all meeting about? And I said, we're meeting about a great opportunity that we have. I don't mind telling people, look, 2022 in North Carolina can be a year that you turn this state around. I'm talking about Black voters, turning this state around. But in order to turn the state around, we got to turn ourselves around. We got to turn our own minds around, our capacity. And I know that the day has been structured. We're going to have a great first session of knowledgeable experts, and we'll get into the data, and then we're going to break out in regions and sessions. And to everyone listening on video, bye. And I hope, Marcus, for those who don't get a chance to witness this live, they'll be able to see it virtually in a repeated fashion. 100 counties. Black folks win in all 100 counties. This is the end of March. We're getting to go into April. The primary is now in May, is that right? There's going to be 18 days of early voting before the primary. And then there's going to be 18 days of early voting before the November general election. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. We got 8 months in 100 counties. So Marcus, in this convening, I'm hoping that we will decide by the end of this day that we're all going to go back to our places of organizing and mobilizing. And each month, May through November, we are at the minimum, I'll at least have one meeting in each of the 100 counties, each month. So that's 8 meetings in 100 counties each month. That's 800 meetings. Come on now. And we're not just meeting to be meeting. Right now, I was brought up in the Episcopal Church, needed to hear some tambourines and some bass. So I went to the Baptist Church and the Holiness Church, and I did my field work at Duke University at the CME Church, the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. But those of us in the CME Church used to say that meant Christians meeting and eating. CME. I don't want us to just have a meeting for the sake of meeting. We have to have a meeting, Professor John, to make sure that we take the data that we get from here, we take the knowledge that we get from this convening, and we spread it. So I'm hoping now that in the May meeting, and we got all of April to plan for the May meeting, that we plan to have a massive voter turnout in the primary election. Don't wait till November. We need a massive voter turnout in all the 100 counties prior to surgery made primary. And it's not so much to send a signal to the white people or to the people in power, it's a signal to our one another. We will start winning victories by claiming the victory in real time. Some of you know that in 1995, I was the national director of the Million Man March. When I got the assignment, Brother Terrence, in April, I had from April to October to get 1 million black men to come to Washington, D.C. In the context of people believing that it wasn't even possible to do. The reason why I'm bringing that up and why I'm trying to remind those of us who are organizers, something Dr. King used to teach us back in the 1960s, said, if you're going to get in the movement, the first thing you need to do is to believe in it. We're all here, some by invitation, some by assignment, because I'm preaching to the choir. I'm not trying to convince you. What we're trying to do is to have the choir sing the same song, with the same beat, with the same spirit, with the same outcome, in 100 counties. See, I know Wake County, I know Mecklenburg County, I know Durham County, I know Guilford County, the big counties, that will take care of business. But I'm concerned not only about the big counties, but the small counties. Because when it comes to the vote, one thing we just learned what Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown were able to do in Georgia, they got every county in Georgia to turn out. We need to learn from what happened in Georgia, in North Carolina. And if Georgia can do it, I know North Carolina can do it. I know we can do it. Pastor Allen, I believe that God not only hears our prayers, but God answers prayers. And so this convening is an answer to the prayers of our ancestors. This convening is an answer to the prayers of brothers and sisters who are struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to improve their quality of life. This convening is an answer to brothers and sisters in the state who are disproportionately mass incarcerated. A year or so ago, I was an election monitor in Malawi in Africa. And Professor Joyner, in Africa, they allow people in prison. Why are they in prison? To vote. What if they allowed every prisoner in North Carolina to vote? They from all 100 counties. When I was in the Wilmington 10, I spent most of the 1970s in prison. I saw some of the sharpest minds, not as prison guards, but those brothers that were locked down in Central Prison, or in Caledonia Prison, or Oldham Prison, or in Hillsborough Prison. But their minds were being wasted away because they had been mass incarcerated and punished in a way that made them think that their humanity had been taken away because they were assigned a sentence by a judge. Reverend, one thing that I learned in my own life, that the state can't take away what the state didn't give. The state can't take away our ancestry, our lineage, our history as being freedom fighters and struggles for freedom, justice, and equality. When they were deciding where to have this convening, I was so pleased they chose Greensboro. And I'm so pleased they chose Shiloh Baptist Church, because the Black church in all of our 100 counties, all of our organizers, we got to make sure that the Black church is mobilized. We're not going to have a freedom movement without God being at the center of the freedom movement. I know this is we're not supposed to mix up theology and politics. Theology is political, and politics is theological. For our community, anything that touches the quality of life of our people is something that we have to be concerned about. And this time in 2022, as we prepare for the midterm elections, as we prepare for the primary elections here in North Carolina, there's nothing more important than getting out our vote. And as I consider myself somewhat of an organizer, out the voters, knowing the statistics of each of the 100 counties. Not only how many black people in each of the counties, but how many eligible voters are in each of the counties. And I'm so glad to see students here from North Carolina A&T and from other HBCUs. Our Generation Z, our millennials, our young people in our community, this is the best generation of youth that we've ever been blessed to witness. They're the best. They're the most talented, the most gifted. But you know what this generation also needs? They need to be embraced by those of us who are elders. They need to be not just hugged, they need to be lifted up. We cannot afford a generation gap in North Carolina. We cannot afford a cultural gap in North Carolina. We cannot afford a spiritual gap in North Carolina. We cannot afford a political gap among us in North Carolina. We have to come together. The Black church, the HBCUs, the political organizations, the legal organizations, the fraternal organizations. I'm a Prince Hall Mason. Since the African Lodge in 1700. So I'm calling on the Masons and Eastern Stars to come out. Help us organize. Help us mobilize in each of the 100 counties. And I know you say, well, you keep talking about 100 counties. Why? Because it has to be part of our strategy. This is a statewide convening that has to lead to a statewide organizing, that has to lead to a statewide mobilizing, that has to lead to a statewide get out the vote, GOTV, get out the black vote. Because I can assure you, these Trumpites, they're going to vote. I live over in Oxford, North Carolina. And sometimes when I go from Durham to Oxford, I don't go to the interstate, I go to the back roads. I go to the back roads. I want to know what's going on in the back roads. And to my surprise, I see all these permanent Trump signs, Confederate flags, flying on not people's businesses, on their homes. There's a whole crop of people being raised up in North Carolina. Some of the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, were from this county, were from this state. Not only carrying the Confederate flag, but carrying the North Carolina flag into the Capitol. I hope some of y'all saw that. The reason why I'm bringing that up, as we convene, as we are planning, please do not take your security or our security lightly. Getting out the vote is a matter of life and death. Why did I say that? It is just that serious. Report came out 2 weeks ago that showed that the United States Census that was taken in 2020 undercounted Black Americans, not by the thousands, not by the tens of thousands, not by the hundreds of thousands, but by the millions. In North Carolina, undercount of the Black vote, undercount of Black population also took place. So Professor Jordan, one of the things we got to do is figure out, I don't know what to become legal, but if the lines are being drawn based on the census that had millions of undercount, then there's something wrong with those lines. Not just in the contested jurisdictions and congressional districts, but throughout the country. I'm hoping that the Biden-Harris administration would do something to amend or correct the undercount of Black people in America, the undercount of Black people in North Carolina. But one of the things that I'm smiling is that we know where our people are. I'm talking to organizers in here, the mobilizers. We have to reach them. And one of the things we found out, and I'm talking to some of the brothers and sisters from Georgia, when they went in these rural areas and started knocking on these doors and brothers and sisters had to go, guess what happened? brothers and sisters who had not been reached out for years and said, what took y'all so long? I'm glad to vote. I'm not going to vote, I'm going to make sure everybody in my family votes. And so I appeal to my millennial and Generation Z young brothers and sisters who are here and who are listening. They say it takes a village to raise a child. That's true, but the opposite is also true. It takes a child to raise a village. We need to allow our young people, take your parents to the polls. Take your relatives to the polls. Those of us who still have breakfast together right now, one thing I'm finding out that black folks, we even stop eating together. When I was growing up, no matter how busy we were, we all went to the breakfast table together, said a little prayer, and then talk about what we're going to do that day. And then we would reconvene at the end of the day for dinner. Now, we're meeting at McDonald's, Popeyes, and other items. I'm not knocking fast food, but we should take time to meet in the family. So my first one was the black church. My second is the black family. We have to mobilize, get out the vote in the family. One person in the family voting is insufficient. We need everybody in the family to vote. And each family has to assess what are we doing to get out the vote in our family. I'm going to make sure that the Chavis family is going to vote. You're going to lose your credibility if you're not going to vote. But Marcus, I know you're going to make sure that the Bass family votes. Reverend Allen, I know you're going to make sure that the Allen family votes. The point I'm trying to make is that the Raleigh News and Observer or the Charlotte Post is not going to give us the impetus that we need. WRAL, see, some of y'all don't remember. I remember when Jesse Helms used to be a commentator on WRAL in Raleigh, but he had statewide coverage. And he had something called Editorial Viewpoint by Jesse Helms. And on network television, every evening, Jesse Helms would refer to black people as niggas. On air, proudly. And then he gets elected to be a United States Senator. The reason I'm bringing this up, when you see the respect that Ted Cruz, the respect that Holly, the respect that some of these senators did to our beloved sister Jackson Brown just this week, that disrespect to black people just didn't start this week. It is endemic. And Marcus is right. We live through pandemics of not just health pandemics, but pandemics of white supremacy, pandemics of racial injustice, pandemics of making us think that we are not even brothers and sisters. So we have to begin to not only love one another, but care about each other. And let our love and caring for one another be manifest of how we reach out to one another. Now, in these 100 counties, and I know that times have changed. Now, I was growing up as a kid some time ago. I was born in 1948, grew up in Oxford, Graham County in the 1950s. Got in the movement in the 1960s. In my community where I was growing up, people did not lock their doors. Even when you had a screen door, you left your door open. So if your neighbor needed some sugar or some butter or some eggs, they would go in and get it and leave a little note, I got some of the eggs. But you let your neighbor now go in your house and get something. Y'all be calling cops. Not because it's right for somebody to come in your house and take something, that's not the point. I'm talking about our sense of community, our sense of neighborhood, our sense of familyhood, our sense of across denominational lines, across ideological lines, across gender lines, across sexual orientation lines. We got so many lines that we got to cross. But it's possible. Unity is not only possible, it is essential. And that's what the good thing about the Tuesday night calls that we will have leading up to this convention. Amazing unity. See elected officials, grassroots organizers, religious leaders, social workers, political scientists, brothers and sisters of all kinds of lawyers, professors, working together to plan this convention. So I'm just honored to be in your presence. Because I know something's getting ready to happen in North Carolina that hasn't happened in a long time. 100 counties mobilized, 100 counties organized, 100 counties getting out to vote. James Butler Johnson, in closing, said it best. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God of North Carolina, God of these 100 counties, God of this convening, be with us, stay with us, encourage us, give us the spirit, give us a victory, Lord, and we give you all the praise. Come on, North Carolina.